Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am Kate Bear. I'm the Rural Prosperity Manager for the Colorado Resiliency Office, and we are super excited to have you all here today for our Reimagine Main Street webinar. This is a part of the series that the Colorado Resiliency Office has been hosting around kind of COVID-19 adaptations and futures.
Does he travel much? And he travels with us, actually.
Just a reminder to go on mute if you are not already. And just a quick housekeeping note is typically we've been doing these every other week. We do have a kind of special session that we're going to be running on July 2nd at 11 around local government financial resources, helping kind of navigate those spaces that we know to be challenging of where the funding is at. But today we're focusing on Main Streets. This is one of my favorite topics. I think it's where we're seeing most of the creativity and innovation happening right now in the face of all this change. So without further ado, I'm actually going to hand this over to Gail Langley, who is the manager of our Main Street program, to introduce our panelists.
Perfect. I'll let the slides catch up here with Melissa navigating. Hello, everybody. My name is Gail Langley, and I am the state coordinator for the Colorado Main Street program. And as you see in the picture on this particular slide, this is a movement. Next slide, please. Oops, you might have to click through the verbiage is gone on there. Well, I will continue on anyway. The Main Street movement or program started back in 1980 through the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And today, across the country, there are over 2,200 communities that participate, either urban or rural. And Colorado Main Street is one of 48 coordinating programs around the country. And within that, even though you can't see the numbers, we have 48 communities from all corners and stretches in rural Colorado that are part of the program here today. Next slide, please. Oop, there you go. You can go to the next slide. So what is Main Street? Well, the Main Street program actually offers support for community-led, community-driven, grassroots efforts to help you build capacity and volunteers. They're going to come alongside of a core group of people in the Main Street program and say, we really want to preserve our downtown. And preservation is at the very core of the philosophy of the Main Street program. If you preserve your downtown for generations to come, you keep your history, you keep your heritage, you keep your assets intact. And that creates economic impact for people wanting to come to your beautiful downtown and see what you have to offer. And the program itself helps you build partnerships and leverage opportunities either through other state agencies or through the program itself in order to keep that momentum going, which right now, Main Street has been in the news everywhere in terms of how do we reopen, how do we do that safely, how do we get people to engage in our downtown. Next slide, please. So the program itself is built on a four-point approach, which I'm only going to just briefly touch on this to kind of set the stage. The four-point approach that was developed in 1980 continues to work and has been adapted over the years to continue to be relevant in today's economies and scales of market. The first point is organization, and that's where you pull together your community to help you really create a sense of ownership for people to help you rebuild your downtown and take a look at it through the lens of historic preservation and long-term. Excuse me. The second lens is through design. Making your downtown be in tip-top shape, cleaning the streets, putting flowers out, getting the facades updated to give your downtown a sense of economic vitality, which is the third point. And that is what is really the focus and driving factor right now through the pandemic. of people wanting to have that vibrancy back in their downtowns and to bring people back into the businesses and have them open up once and open up safely. And then the last point, which is the foundation of the program, is promotion. Promoting who you are, what you have to offer, the unique events that you have in your downtown. And I'm getting some feedback on here. I'm not sure if other people are. And really, really getting people to engage in those unique activities. And many of our communities have activities like snow dog sled, figuring, and other things in their downtowns, which really play on the origins of how their community came into being. So I don't want to take away time from our speakers. So if you go to the next slide, please. I have the awesome opportunity to introduce 3 of our stellar Main Street managers from 3 of our rural communities. They're going to be talking about the innovations and creativity as they pivoted and adapted to this pandemic. The first is Miss Cynthia Neeb. She's the Director of Economic Development and Urban Renewal for the city of La Junta. She's a dynamo. She's going to talk about how she makes things happen. Second is Callie Cooper, who is the director of the executive director of the Wellington Main Street program. She's been there for about almost 2 years, and she brings her with some excellent marketing and promotional background. And she has really been the focal point and person in Wellington to get that messaging and communication and community involved in how they're bringing people back into their downtown. And then our third speaker will be Matt Ashby. He's the executive director of the Windsor DDA, as well as the Main Street manager for the program. And he also wears a third hat. He also is a valued consultant to the Main Street program, and he helps our communities with their messaging, communications, establishing a vision and mission and strategic work plan, which everyone is taking a look at these days in terms of how they need to pivot and adapt. So with that, that was my 3 minutes of fame. I am going to pass the baton over to Cynthia, who is going to talk about the city of La Junta.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cynthia Neeb, and I'm with you today to speak about my chosen hometown, La Junta, Colorado. We in the Southeast build upon our culture and depend on our tenacity and intelligence to blow through obstacles such as COVID-19. We also play well with others. Next, please. La Junta is a historic downtown of approximately 7,000 residents located on Highway 50 between Pueblo and Lamar. As you can see, we're at the center of everything. Next, please. Our roots stem from ranching and agriculture, which is very prevalent today as it was yesterday. This is one of the 2 livestock barns that still exists in La Junta. Next, please. We have a rich railroad history because it was the railroads that built our town. That's the 1024 in the background, our beloved engine on Depot Hill. Next, please. I'm telling you all of this because in Otero County and in much of the Southeast, we're in an unemployment bubble. While much of the United States has an unemployment rate currently hovering at around 13.3%, we in Otero County have an unemployment rate of around 7.6%. That graph that you see there is from just a little while ago when it was even more of a pronounced difference. We are attributing this in part to our lack of dependence on tourism, but don't get me wrong, we'd love to be dependent on tourism, the beef and agriculture industries, and our dogged determination to support local businesses. Takeout's ritual, and we buy theater tickets by the score now, even though the theater still isn't open. Next, please. When shops closed, our local SBDC took the lead in helping individual businesses receive their federal assistance. I spread the word on loans and grants that were available. Local service groups such as the Rotary rallied and provided funding to purchase personal protective equipment, and to thank those in the front lines by providing food and treats. We all chipped in to make a difference. Next, please. Another pleasant surprise was the emergence of a new business, Klein Makerspace. As soon as Jesse Klein and Jaron Hinckley saw the need, they mobilized their 3D printers to make over 1,000 face shields for those on the front lines in Colorado, as well as in other states. They just purchased a downtown building to set up an innovative maker space. Next, please. Cisco Perez of Sublimation, Colorado Sublimation Printing, jumped into new territory by putting a number of industrial sewing machines loaned to him by CSU in to make masks for everyone in the Arkansas Valley who wanted them. And what's miraculous about this is Cisco doesn't know how to sew, but he sure learned fast. Next, please. Since restaurants have opened, most are operating at 50 to 75% of what they were before they went into quarantine. Owners point to reduced volume of customers required because of social distancing and the increase in minimum wage. When I say required, I mean that they needed that volume in order to survive. For some, the ambiance of having a crowded eatery with all the locals is just what made their establishments so special. We have not seen businesses close as of yet, but COVID-19 has not retired. This is the next chapter, and we'll be working on this soon. Next, please. Now that we've set the stage, let's talk about some other good that's been done by our municipal team. Instead of fueling the typical struggles between cities and counties, La Junta and Otero County are amicably agreeing with how to divvy up the monies of the CARE Act. We're looking into ways to use some of those monies to help those businesses that need the most assistance. We have 22 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 1 death. Our city administration and council provide weekly updates on issues related to COVID-19 to help people understand the policies. And I think that's kept us from having any sorts of divisiveness. If you take the time to call our utilities office and offer a very minor payment, negative actions won't be taken. So we're working with the people. And the feasibility of adding street furniture to our downtown will be discussed in the next city council meeting. Many are in favor of reducing or removing restrictions. At the present time, street furniture is not allowed. Next slide, please. Now, this is what I'm most proud of. Economic development professionals from Baca, Bent, Crowley, Otero, and Prowers County, and the cities of La Junta and Lamar are meeting each week to determine how to tackle resiliency in the region by doing some pre-planning and working with Tara Marshall from DOLA. We want to do it as a united front rather than individually. We're also applying for funds to contract with a business consultant to coach businesses in all 5 counties on a protracted basis for those who need special assistance. And one other item, as of today, Southeast Colorado Enterprise Development will be open for business to provide loans up to $20,000 at a 1% interest rate to businesses in 6 southeastern counties through the Energize Colorado GAP program. Next, please. In our bright future, we were just awarded the final $585,000 from the Department of Local Affairs for a total of approximately $1.3 million to provide a 2.5-acre intergenerational park called the La Junta Brick and Tile Park after the factory that was here in 1880 to 1920. And that's a photo of it. It's now an empty arroyo, the Anderson Arroyo. It will provide a place for those who are able, children, families, and other able, children, families, and individuals, everybody, to enjoy the outdoors. There are several ADAAG features that we don't have elsewhere, such as a swing for people who are in wheelchairs. It should be finished during the fall of this year. Next, please. Another project is the repaving of our downtown streets so we look as pretty as a penny for anybody who wants to shop downtown. Next, please. We're also fortunate to be in discussion with the Colorado Space Business Roundtable to come to La Junta, probably virtually, to work with our current and wannabe businesses to explore the possibilities of working with the aerospace sector. And that is an incredible coup that I have to tell you, it just came to us. So if you want to know more information about this, email me, get a hold of me, because I can just jump on it by how wonderful it is. Next, please. And to cap things off, we just had a marketing workshop this morning on small business marketing made simple. Next, please. These are just some of the things that will be ever constant and that we're working on. But here's some takeaways that I want you to think about. If you notice, some of these things that I'm doing are not directly related to business. They have to do with community development. They have to do with that design. People need to see that there's hope and progress. I'm also very proud that our entire region, Southeastern, is playing well with others, and we're compromising and brainstorming and not trying to take credit for anything, but working for the good of all. The other thing is right now is a very rich time to apply for grants. If you go to the SBDC site, or you even look at Main Street site, you will see there are tons of grants. Lots of them are easier to apply for than they've ever been before. They're not as comprehensive, should I say. And you've got to apply for some grants if you haven't done so already. Then, as I said before, the Space Business Roundtable, I didn't even think about the aeronautics industry, the sector. But it was a possibility that was presented to me, and I'm going to grab that. And I would suggest that all of you do that too. And again, repeating, I hope that you all work with the people who are your local peers in your region. Don't create those silos. You can get so much more done. Next, please. Enjoy the night sky of La Junta. And as I said, I think good things are going to come. We just all need to work together. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. This is Callie Cooper, and I am the Executive Director in Wellington, Colorado for the Main Street program. And I'm going to sort of delve into some specifics on our patio extension. So go ahead and go next. So what we did, the very first thing that we did in this process is we actually met with the individual owners, business owners in Wellington, to see if there was even an interest. Did they want additional outdoor seating? Did they need it? And then also getting their feedback on exactly what they would need to make that happen. Did they need tables and chairs? Did they need fencing? Do they need outdoor lighting? So we kind of looked through some of those specifics with our business owners. We also made sure to include non-restaurant owners in these discussions. The town and the Main Street used a program called Sketch Up. This is a free Google-based program to come up with a draft of what the outdoor seating could look like. And that's the image that you're seeing on your screen right now. So that actually is what our downtown looks like. And so you can see we were able to do a pretty good mock-up of what this could possibly look like in our downtown. We're still working on the final plan, and the final look will add a cohesiveness to our downtown and may have the potential to be a permanent fixture. So we really wanted to look and do some future planning while we were getting this feedback. Next, please. So the Wellington Board of Trustees and our town approved a temporary patio extension program. The program included an initial $10,000 worth of funding and up to $25,000 to provide patio furniture and fencing for any of the applicants that needed it. This was both to show support for the businesses, but also to ensure that we had a cohesive look to the downtown area, which is something that we talk a lot about as a Main Street program, is what does our downtown look like? Any business could apply as long as they had a valid business license. We did find that non-restaurant businesses were just as interested as the restaurants in their sidewalk use for outdoor sales and marketing purposes. We did need to make sure that there was a clear travel path that met ADA accessibility. So in Wellington, that's 36 inches. I think in some communities it can go all the way up to 42. So you would just have to find out from your town what your ADA accessibility requirements are. I also did put a link to the application. So if this is shared later, you can go and click through that and see our actual application. Next, please. So here are some of the challenges that we have faced with our outdoor use. Our main corridor, so our main drag through town, Cleveland Avenue, is a state highway. So we have to adhere to CDOT. So CDOT has said that they will be providing us guidance soon for use of their right-of-way for outdoor seating. We are still waiting on this guidance. We were hoping probably at the end of this week that we would hear from them, so fingers crossed. So we have gone ahead and purchased the furniture that we would like to use, as we don't expect that these guidelines will be more strict than what we already have in place. We also have very narrow sidewalks in our downtown, so we had to be strategic about where our additional seating would go. And what this meant for us is actually looking at the storefronts next to some of our restaurants. So if there was a tree or trash cans or benches that were directly in front of the restaurant, we did use some good neighbor policies to move next door to find alternative space for tables and chairs and outdoor seating to go. Next, please. So this is where we kind of got creative. So while we are waiting on guidance from CDOT, our businesses started making use of the alley space behind their restaurant to expand their seating area. So the pictures that you're looking at right now are of Soul Square Brewing Company, and their building is actually to the left of this blue building, but they are renting their building next door and expanded their space behind that building and even added some fun elements to draw people to that area and to come see the restaurant. Next, please. Another one of our restaurants took the opportunity to finally finish an existing patio space that was being used for storage on the side of their building. So they had all sorts of just junk in this patio area. So they took the chance and took the opportunity to clean it all up and add additional outdoor seating. The town of Wellington and our fire department approved the use of this oversized tent that you see. And they did that as part of that temporary patio extension application. Next, please. All right, so liquor licensing. Our breweries in town are still working with the state of Colorado for extensions on their servable area. Both of our existing breweries have already been granted those extensions and are making use of their space. So we are still working on following up with our restaurants regarding additional space needs for serving liquor. As of right now, the restaurants cannot serve liquor into those expanded seating areas, only because we are still waiting on those CDOT guidelines. So it's going to kind of all fall into place. So once we have approval from CDOT, we will do the outdoor seating, and then the extended liquor license area will follow after that. Fortunately for us, many of our restaurants already have existing patio areas that were included in their permits, but they were just not using them. The bottom right photo here that you guys see is our Mexican restaurant, Sol de Jalisco, and they actually poured their cement patio just a few days ago and added all the roping and the tables, but this was already an area that they could serve liquor in. They just weren't using it. They were using it as parking. So those are just some different options that you can look at when you're trying to find additional space. Next, please. And this is kind of the last thing I wanted to throw in there. So part of our issue here in Wellington was actually less of a space needs and more of a making their customers feel comfortable and getting people to come back out and start to work through sort of that public perception. So we are encouraging a lot of our restaurants to host special events to highlight their outdoor spaces. One of our restaurants, Papa's Table, is doing a weekly outdoor barbecue to encourage customers to visit their outdoor patio. And they also did a special Father's Day barbecue as well. So they don't typically barbecue. They're not a barbecue restaurant. They do Asian and Italian food. So this was just something out of the box for them, something different, and something to draw people to their restaurant. We also have several restaurants that are attempting to safely host live music and other special events. So that is really what our focus is right now, is how do we get people out? How do we get people how do we make people comfortable, and how do we gear our messaging towards the fact that our restaurants are putting safety measures in place to make it a fun and enjoyable experience for their customers. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Ashby from Windsor Downtown Development Authority. And we're excited to be part of the Colorado Main Street program. And I think that's important for folks to take home a little bit of information about how the Main Street program functions. And in our community, we have a 4-point approach, which is design, organization, promotion, and economic vitality. And what this does is it provides us with a structure by which we can approach any downtown issue and think about those 4 key elements as being an important aspect to hopefully structure our responses and our projects in a way that is really measured and effective as well. Next slide. So in looking at those 4 points, Windsor's response has first been to look at the overall design elements in our community. And the first one that we really addressed was similar to Cali, the sidewalk cafe seating. And we were fortunate enough to have the town of Windsor step up and relocate several picnic tables from other parks and community spaces and provide them on loan to our local restaurants. In addition, the event barrier fencing that's typically used for some of the events at our local parks was also provided to give them an option at no cost and no investment to be able to open up their sidewalk patio spaces. And so we've now been at least a week and a half, if not 2 weeks, of having most of our businesses open with sidewalk seating as well as liquor sales. Now with that, one of the problems that cropped up was the fact that as more people come back downtown, the to-go parking and the to-go service is still an important economic driver for our restaurants. So we quickly mobilized and developed 5-minute limit signs to be able to put near all of our restaurants. And the town has been great in working with us to essentially, they will be painting the restriction on the pavement on our side streets here in the next week or so. And the take-home lesson that we have is that with many of these installations, you want to make sure that they're in the right spot and they're working before you make things permanent. So give it a test drive. Try and make sure that your solutions are not going to be irreversible if you suddenly find out that, gosh, that's not in the right spot. Next slide, please. So as far as the liquor premises map amendment, one of the things that we saw in our community was that process was really something that our restaurants needed some assistance with, some more than others. But again, remembering that our businesses are in a time of intense stress, so the more that we can help cut the red tape for them, the better. Now, one thing that we discovered as we were kind of helping create the premises maps, we assumed that the tables from inside would be moved outside to be used for the patio seating. And then the town came through and said, hey, we've got some free seating that you could use that's outdoor suitable. So what that ended up doing was changing our arrangement of the tables and the spacing. So the take-home lesson that I would send you with is to do what Callie has been doing and try to identify options for the specific tables and chairs prior to drafting your maps, because you don't want to create a assumption of a sidewalk area and then have to come back and retrofit it after the fact. But definitely using your local governments to cut the red tape, I think, is a huge opportunity for us. Next slide. One of the other things that we've seen in our district at our new Windsor Mill project that had just opened in October was the retrofitting of several fixtures and areas that weren't originally contemplated as outdoor dining areas, but could be easily transformed using some of the existing features. And in this image, the bar stool seating is actually new, and it is a response to the outdoor seating needs. What they did was they used the railing that was constructed as part of the project and built L-shaped brackets for the bar tables to be attached to. So a very quick and reasonable adaptation using an existing fence feature to help accommodate more seating. So any way you can adapt existing structures to accommodate more seating is definitely a quicker, lighter, and cheaper approach to addressing the issues we're facing now. Next slide, please. In that similar area, we also saw a number of different delineation strategies. One of the restaurants had bought a number of barrels to use as an aesthetic component of their restaurant. And while that's definitely a more expensive fix, they paired it with T-bars, T-posts that have plastic chain on it. So the barriers, I think, can be high-end, or they can both be something somewhat simple. So just trying to, one, provide a solution that can be quickly implemented is positive. But I think one of the challenges that we're all going to be facing here over the next several months is what is a long-term solution to some of the issues that we're facing. Next slide. So in terms of economic vitality, another key Main Street point, one solution that we've seen is the creation of loadable online menus. We found this at the Windsor Mill Tavern, that they had a note that the table had been sanitized and a simple QR code that you could scan with your phone for folks to be able to load immediately into the bar menu. So that way, again, you have an opportunity to make people comfortable and access the information that they need. And it's a great way to adapt to changing conditions with technology. Next slide. This is one of the innovations that we launched early on before Mother's Day. While folks were still concerned about wandering through our shops, we actually used Matterport 3D technology to photograph 3 of our stores' interiors. And you might have experienced this with a house tour, a real estate 3D virtual tour of a residential house. But we adapted it to our local downtown retailers who didn't have robust online websites. And what this did was it allowed people to virtually walk through the stores, and then we encouraged them to go ahead and give a call to those businesses and to make their purchase virtually. So really neat technology. We're excited to hopefully expand it to more of our businesses. And if you'd like to see an animated video on how this works, I'm actually posting a link in the chat box right now. Next slide. Organization is one of the other key points of Main Street, and one of the things that we're really working on and are thankful for the Colorado Main Street program and their assistance is the idea that we need to share success. And people today are needing to hear positive stories. They want to know what kind of impact our cities, our towns, our special districts are having and how they are responding to the current situations. And so by sharing the success stories like this one, which Windsor DDA was able to work with a local distiller, and we distributed 42 growlers filled with hand sanitizer to our local businesses. And just being able to share that story, I think, is reflecting positively on the Windsor DDA and also building bridges with our business owners. Next slide. And finally, along those same lines, this was another slide created through the Colorado Main Street program. We wanted to both spotlight safety as well as efforts that our individual businesses are running and the difference that they're making. So kind of celebrating the great things that our local businesses are doing while also promoting and advertising them a little bit. So this is Inga, one of our tailors in Windsor, and she and her team sewed 1,300 masks over the course of a couple of weeks, with the first group of those masks going to local police and first responders. So, you know, definitely these are the true heroes in our community, and remembering that we as local government entities need to make sure that we're shedding the spotlight on the great things that are happening and really creating that positive community atmosphere. So with that, those are the innovations and the adaptations that Windsor DDA is undertaking, and it's just great to be able to be a part of an organization that is truly helping our communities. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or turn it back over to the moderator for Q&A.
Thank you, everybody. I thought that those were terrific presentations, a lot of really fantastic kind of detail and ideas coming out of there. I want to remind everybody who's on this call right now is you can submit any of your questions into the chat box. We do have a couple in here, one specific to Matt, which is, what was that name of the app with the barcode that you shared?
Which one again?
The barcode app, the QR code where you could load the menu.
Yes, so the QR codes are fairly accessible online. They have several different applications that you can essentially generate a QR code. There may be a small cost for each code that you generate, but then you link in the website that you want it connected to, and it kind of just does a redirect. So happy to try and answer any more specific questions on that offline. It could get pretty detailed pretty quickly.
Another great question that's come through here was this kind of piece on how you handled maybe community opposition, and I guess also I would maybe expand that question to be, how did you engage with your community to make sure that everybody was on board with some of the changes you were making? So let's start with Matt, and then we'll let Callie and Cynthia jump in if they have anything to add.
Sure. We actually just encourage direct communication, specifically between our restaurants and businesses that were in close proximity. One of our businesses is in a narrow, long, deep space, and didn't have a whole lot of sidewalk frontage to be able to expand their cafe space into. And so we basically just encouraged them to go next door, talk to the building owner, and ask for permission to be able to expand and place tables in front of their neighbor's building. And one of the innovations that I heard this morning was about a good neighbor policy out of Greeley. And basically, I think it just sets up a few things in writing to, say, hey, if you have a problem, here's who to call. Let's talk if there's an issue, but let's be good neighbors.
Callie or Cynthia, would you like to add anything in the engagement conversation?
Sure. So this wasn't directly in my presentation, but we also did a show us your mask challenge as part of some of our recovery efforts. And, we did get a little bit of sort of lashback from our community on, should we be like the people that were very opposed to mask wearing, we did get some negative feedback from that. But through that, what we were able to do was say, this is in an effort to help our business owners. So while we are not trying to act as in any way as a health organization or as, a town representative, we are just offering support for our businesses. And so by participating in this challenge or by allowing this outdoor seating, even if it's, especially if it's temporary, we want these businesses to stay in place and we want them to remain viable. So I think that when you're talking with your community, if you put it back on them to say, we know that this may be uncomfortable, we know that this may not be convenient, but putting it back on them and saying, this is how you can show your support, that has been really helpful in Wellington. And I hope that maybe answers your question.
Yeah, great, thanks.
The only thing I really have to add is that there has been a little bit of pushback on masks and also social distancing here. The way that it's been approached, as I mentioned during my presentation, has to do with communication through City Hall. So it's been something that is ongoing, but explaining to people why things are being done, why there are some restrictions is, I think, the best way possible. Some people will never accept it, and we just need to accept that. I mean, one of the biggest wins that we had recently was reopening the swimming pool and figuring out how to do that safely. So there are a lot of kids who are, used to having those outdoor activities, and being able to make sure that they can do that, it's really important. I have visited some of our restaurants. I have not noticed anybody who does not comply with the social distancing as well as the masks. I think they're respectful of it, if anything, of the owners of the restaurant and wanting to make sure that they can stay open and they also have a thriving business.
Thanks, everybody. We actually got a question. I'm actually going to put this to Gail, if she's still on the line, which is providing information about how you establish a Main Street program. Gail is saying, contact her, and she's happy to tell you more about it. And also, if you go to Zola's website, you can look up Main Street there and find out more about the program as well. I have one more question for our panel here, and that is, I'd love to know, I know that we are all in the midst of just trying to reopen, and that's a Herculean effort in of itself, and you guys are doing so many fun and exciting things. I'm wondering how you're thinking about the long term. So what are you thinking further into the fall and the winter, and what happens when maybe we have to come back indoors in some way, shape, or form. And anybody can jump in if you guys have started to think that far out.
So this is Callie Cooper again. So we have been, part of it is being very, very honest with your businesses. So, you know, we have told them, you know, we can provide you a temporary solution and give you outdoor seating that will get you through the fall. But obviously, guys, we live in Colorado, so our weather is not going to stay cooperative forever. And so we've been really honest saying, please keep your to-go options running through the summer so that when we do get to the fall and maybe they can't use those outdoor spaces and we still have restrictions, that it's not this stark contrast going back to-go orders and curbside pickup. So, because we've had a couple of our restaurants that were like, oh, yay, we don't have to do, you know, we don't have to do to-go orders and we don't have to do curbside pickup anymore. And we've just said, hey, wait, hold on. You know, we really would encourage you to keep doing that through the summertime, so that you have that response in the fall.
What we're doing here is we're applying actually for some funding to provide training for businesses in the different sectors, because we do have, for instance, small manufacturing that actually occurs in our downtown area. The agriculture and also beef industries affect us. The health sector affects us. We've got some health entities downtown, and also personal care and restaurant businesses. With the whole point about providing this training is to figure out, all right, say that we don't get any additional federal funding. What are you going to do to sustain your business? What can we help you with to help you work through that winter, to also to come up with new ideas? For instance, if you've got a restaurant, of course, there's always the takeout. But in addition to the takeout, do you have a signature dish that we might be able to really market, and that you could get some extra income from doing something like that? Do we have a way that we can co-market each other, so that, you know, if you're in one store, you can find out about another store, another outlet that might meet your needs. So we're trying to do some creative things, and it's not just, again, it's not just La Junta. This the grant that I'm applying for, and I have to finish it by tomorrow, but is for the entire southeastern part of the state, so that anybody who has a question about how to meet this challenge can address it. And I'm working with a SBDC consultant who I know can meet all of these challenges. So that's what we're doing. One of the things we're doing.
This is Matt. I guess one of the things that we had initially thought about was doing a revisit of our virtual tour prior to the holidays, so that all of our businesses had the opportunity to show their holiday displays and encourage that virtual shopping during that season as well. I think one of the other things that we'll be stepping up is our window displays. So making sure that our retailers are understanding the importance and value of being able to display their goods through the window, so that they have that opportunity. And we just wrapped up a session with a consultant that visited to talk to both Wellington and Windsor yesterday on visual merchandising. So great discussions on kind of amping up that window shopping option. We're also looking at trying to figure out how to make our patio spaces more three-season, and that could be through clear vinyl tent material, heaters and things like that. just to add a few more weeks on either end of the fall or spring to some of those outdoor spaces. And a couple of our businesses have inquired about takeout windows. So trying to build those in over this interim period so that offers just one more opportunity for people to engage with our businesses. You know, the other one that is kind of in a concept mode is being able to use some of the vacant spaces within your towns as a large offsite dining hall where you could have greater spacing between tables. So I don't know that that's going to be an opportunity in Windsor just because we don't have a whole lot of large vacant buildings. But, you know, looking at repurposing some of our historic buildings and adapting them to the current situation could be an opportunity for us all to explore.
I am super impressed by everybody and the things that you're exploring. I think these are such great ideas. I've been taking various notes to share out with all the communities that we work with. In that vein, I'd like to add that the Colorado Resiliency Office has a website where we're sharing some of these community adaptations that we are seeing. It's coresiliency.com/COVID-19. We'll put this in the chat. We have a community adaptation hub where we're starting to tell some of these stories and also include any of the kind of downtown adaptations that we're seeing in the news. So check that out for ideas. It's a really fun place to get some inspiration. With that, I want to thank all of our panelists. You have been fantastic. I am just super excited to live in a state where people are trying such fun things. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.